Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ANZ AWS Community Days. Today is day 2, the Alexa and Connect track. My name is Ian Mackay. I'm an AWS community hero here in Australia, out of Sydney. I'm also a partner network ambassador. And today I'm joined by Keisha Williams. Keisha, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am super excited to be here. My name is Keisha Williams. I am hailing from Atlanta, Georgia. Just a little bit about me. I've been in IT for about 25 years, built a long career on Java software engineering. 7 years ago, I found the cloud. And 3 years ago, I found machine learning. I'm currently an AWS machine learning hero and an Alexa champion. And I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us at such a late hour for the US. Before we begin, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. So on behalf of our organisers, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So today we're live on Twitch. We're going to have a bunch of speakers talking to us today about Alexa and Connect. If you have questions or want to talk to us and interact with us, feel free to post your messages on Twitch. We'd love to talk to you guys. We are a welcoming community, but please note that we don't tolerate any harassment in chat. Please show respect. If you do see any breaches in that, we want to know about it. We want to stop that. Please send us an email at awsanzcommunitydays@gmail.com. So we'll be in here in chat all day. All talks are pre-recorded, but our speakers are all in chat at the moment. So when you see their videos, feel free to send through your questions and we'll answer them either in chat or live with the speakers. So a quick question for the people in the chat right now is, where are you all coming from today? I'm coming from Speaker, Keisha's from Atlanta. Where are you coming from, and what Alexa devices do you have in your home? So I have a first generation Alexa in my living room. I have an Echo Dot to my side and also have an Echo Show 5 that I use for Alexa display skills, which is all really interesting. Keisha, what devices do you have? What Alexa devices do you have in your home? I imagine being an Alexa champion, you have a lot of different bits and bobs around.
Yes, I have every Alexa device, every Echo Show. I have Echo Auto. I have Echo Buds.
Wow.
I have everything. There's an Alexa in every room.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Alexa's my best friend. We get along very well. And I have them all turned off, so she will not try to join the conversation today.
Yes, and a note for our viewers today that you should probably mute your Alexa's microphones if you don't want her to be pitching in all day and providing commentary on today's proceedings.
Definitely.
Yeah, so let's cut to today's schedule. I want to quickly go through what we're going to go through today as far as our speakers go. So first up, we have Gunnar Grosch. He'll be talking about building an AI-enabled Alexa skill with IoT connectivity. We'll have Emma Rigo talking about building an Alexa flash briefing skill, which is great. We'll also have Robertson Taylor talking about Amazon Connect and monitoring the call quality using some of the new features available there. It's not on the schedule, but we also have Jeff Barr talking to us briefly about the importance and power of user groups. So stay tuned for that at about 12:35. We have Arek Beksa talking about how Alexa can be used in the blind and vision impaired community and how that works. So that's really interesting. Looking forward to hearing that. And finally, we have Ryan Brooks-Kane talking about on-demand Connect centers and building that up from scratch in just 10 minutes. So that's our schedule for today, and I'm really looking forward to all of those things. So a bit about Alexa and Connect that we see, and maybe some of the trends that we're going to go through today. Recently, we've seen some things like the Connect outbound pricing drop significantly in both the ANZ region and globally abroad. I find that's really interesting. I think that's really helping out the community in seeing what's available there. We have a bunch of different Connect use cases that are coming around for not just external communications, but also for internal communications. I see a lot of people using that for their own support centers and things along that nature. And a lot of people adopting the new Connect lens, which talks a little bit about the monitoring of metrics, and we'll hear more about that today. I might throw over to Keisha and because you're the expert in Alexa, and I'd like to see what you're hearing about in Alexa trends this year, what you're seeing.
Sure. So there are a lot of fun and exciting things I've seen with Alexa, definitely around the smart home space. So a lot of devices like just lights and refrigerators, security systems, microwaves, garage doors, just everything integrates with Alexa so that you can control it through voice. And then also what's big now, Alexa conversations. So just helping Alexa better understand context. So it just feels like you're speaking to a real person. Personally, I already believe that Alexa is a real person, and conversations makes that even more real. And then also trends around Alexa on the go. I mentioned the Echo Auto, but new features make it easier to navigate and stay connected and entertained on the go. And I've seen several startups using Alexa in the education space, trying to engage children. So those are some of the trends I've seen in the Alexa space.
Fantastic. And we are in reInvent time at the moment. So reInvent's just around the corner. This year it's free and virtual, and it does go for 3 weeks. There is both a dedicated Alexa track, so I look forward to a lot of this talks there. And there is also Connect in the business applications trackers there, so look out for that. Okay, so I think we'll go to our first speaker and our first speaker video today. This speaker is Gunnar Grosch. Gunnar is a senior developer advocate at AWS. He's based out of Sweden, so the time zone's a bit horrible for him today, but we are lucky enough to have him join us today. He was previously a AWS serverless hero, and he started working in the IT industry when people still tried to solve the feared upcoming millennium bug. I think I was about 8 when that was a problem, so way outside of my time. Gunnar today is talking about building an AI-enabled Alexa skill with IoT connectivity. So when he reached out to our call for papers, when we asked, "Oh, what theme is this?" He just said yes. It wasn't a specific theme. He wanted to try and hit every single theme on the head. So shout out to Gunnar for that one. So we'll roll that video just now.
Hi everyone, and welcome to building an AI-enabled Alexa skill with IoT connectivity. My name is Gunnar Grosch. I am a senior developer advocate at AWS, and today we're going to look at how to build an Alexa skill connected to an IoT device and add some AWS managed AI services to it as well. This is going to be quite fast-paced, but don't worry, you can always rewatch and you'll be able to look at all the code afterwards as well. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at how our IoT thing is connected. We're going to create our Alexa skill. Then we're going to take a picture using that skill and the IoT thing. We're going to save that picture and then analyze it using AWS AI services. So let's get to it straight away. First off, looking at the IoT thing. This is an IoT camera that we'll be using, and this is the one, the ESP32 Cam, a small device with a built-in camera, perfect for these kind of experiments. And we're connecting that to AWS IoT Core, the managed IoT platform from AWS. And this is the functionality we're after. We're going to have our IoT thing to subscribe to an IoT topic and wait for messages to arrive. When the message arrives, the thing will take a picture and post that to a different IoT topic. And we're then able to use that image data for the rest of our application. So let's look at how it works. As I said, the IoT thing is already connected and hooked up, so we have that in place already. The application on the thing, it has the functionality needed to be able to subscribe to the topic we decide, and it will then, based on the messages it receives, take a picture and post that to the other topic. And let's give it a try to see that it works. So this is the test client for the IoT console. So I've subscribed to both our messages, both the subscription one and the publish one. So if all works, if I post or publish a message to the topic that our thing subscribes to, it should then take a picture and post that to the other topic. So let's give it a try. Let's publish a message. Cool. Straight away we can see that we get the green dot, meaning that there's a new message published. So let's look at that, scroll down, and we can see now that there is a message published. We can't really see the image, but that's image data, so it's looking promising. All right. On to the next part then, to create our Alexa skill. And this is fairly easy. What we want is our users to be able to talk to Alexa. Alexa should then invoke our Lambda function, do the business logic, the functionality within our Alexa skill, post a message back to Alexa, and then our user will get that from Alexa. All right, so let's look at how we can do that then. Let's create our Alexa skill in the Alexa developer console. We're going to use a custom model for this, and we can choose between having it Alexa hosted or provision our own. And in this case, we're going to provision our own endpoint and the backend resources for our skill. So let's create the skill. And we'll start from scratch. And now it will create the skill. This takes a couple of seconds, so just hold on. There we go. All right, so let's first off change our invocation name. And the invocation name, let's call it Gunnar Community. Let's see if we can pronounce Gunnar correctly. Save our model. Go, and we can now restart the build with the new invocation name. There we go. All right, so let's jump over to VS Code to look at the code for our backend. And I'm using a SAM template, AWS SAM, as a framework to be able to deploy our backend. And I'm using a sample using a SAM sample for an Alexa skill. So it's basically one AWS Lambda function and the template for that. So let's look at the code first off. So this is the sample code for an Alexa skill, a great way to get started building our skills. So let's first off just change hello community. That's what Alexa is gonna say to start off. And then let's look at our template. And this is a fairly short template right now. We have a parameter that we need to enter. That's the ID of our Alexa skill. We'll fetch that from the console. And then we have our Lambda function. And as an output, we'll get different data that we'll be able to use later on. And as an event trigger for our Lambda function, we have the Alexa skill, so that Alexa is able to trigger our AWS Lambda function. All right, so that should be it. Let's then deploy this. First, do a SAM build. Let's SAM build our backend. And then we'll do a SAM deploy, use the guided version. Good stack name, deploy in EU West 1. And then we need to enter our Alexa skill ID as a parameter. So switching back to the developer console, I'm gonna look at our endpoints. And there we go. This is our skill ID. Let's copy that. Paste it. Now just let AWS SAM deploy our backend, our Lambda function. Wait for that to finish. Then we'll get an ARN as an output, and that is something that will enter then into the Alexa console so that Alexa knows which AWS Lambda function to trigger when we're invoking our skill. Here we go. And this is the ARN for our Alexa skill function. Copying that and pasting it once again in the endpoint for our skill. Remove that space. Now just save. There we go. So let's test it. See if I can pronounce my name so Alexa will understand it. Open Gunner Community.
Hello, community.
There we go. So our Lambda function was invoked by opening our skill. The event trigger was Alexa, and now our Lambda function has been invoked and we get the reply back. Cool. So there we go. Now we've created our Alexa skill. So with our Alexa skill in place, the next step then is to get our Alexa skill to be able to take a picture using the IoT thing. And we're going to do it this way. So the user tells Alexa to take a picture, the Lambda function is invoked, sends a message to our IoT topic. And the IoT thing will then get that message based on the subscription, take a picture, and return the image data to the other IoT topic. So let's look at how that works. First off, in the developer console, we need to add a new intent for this functionality. So let's create a custom intent, take picture intent. And utterances to say, to start it, take image, take picture, snap photo. All right, I think that's enough. Let's save the model and build the model. Now let's switch back to VS Code. This is the code for our Lambda function for the Alexa skill. I've added the AWS SDK so that we're able to use IoT data now to be able to post to our endpoint. And this is the take picture intent handler. It speaks out, says taking a picture using IoT device, and then it uses the take picture function. And this is the take picture function. What it does is basically just publish a message to our IoT topic. So that's it. I've also updated the template to now use an IoT endpoint and IoT topic publish parameter. Added those as environment variables to our function and added a pub policy so that the function is able to publish messages to the IoT topic. So let's deploy this. We go. While that is deploying, it should be done fairly quick. The build is successful as well. Let's go to test in the Alexa console. Open Gunner Community.
Hello, community.
Take picture.
Taking a picture using IoT device. What do you want to do now?
Cool. So we've used the take picture intent, and hopefully a picture was taken by the thing. Let's go to the IoT console and look. And as we can see on that topic, there is a green dot. So looks like an image has been posted. So that's great. We've now been able to add a new intent for taking pictures. So now we're able to get Alexa to actually take a picture using the IoT thing. So the next step then is to use that image data and save it somewhere. And this is the architecture for that. We have the IoT thing, take a picture, publish that to the IoT topic. Now we're adding a new Lambda function who will then be triggered by a message to that topic when image data is published. It will trigger and store that image in an S3 bucket, so fairly easy. Let's switch over to VS Code, nothing to do in the Alexa console with this functionality. So I've added the code for an additional Lambda function for saving the image, and we're using the AWS SDK, and we're going to use it to save to S3. So what we're doing is we're fetching the data from that IoT topic, since that's the event trigger for our Lambda function. The image data is part of the event data that the Lambda function receives. So we're able to buffer that data, and then using parameters, we're able to select where we want to save this, and we're going to save it in a specified S3 bucket. And then we just do an S3 put object into that bucket. Let's look at the template. So I've added a couple of more parameters for us to be able to have the subscription topic, so we're able to get the image data. And then we select an object name so that we're able to store our image. And we've added another Lambda function, save image function, which then is triggered by an IoT message from our IoT topic. And then we'll be able to store it in an S3 bucket created here in the template. Okay, so let's try that out then. Let's build this. Go. Now we just need to enter a few more arguments. And let's call the image alexa.jpg. There we go. And that is now deploying. Using the Alexa developer console, let's try it out then to see if it works. Open Gunner community.
Hello, community.
Take picture.
Taking a picture using IoT device. What do you want to do now?
Right, so switching to the S3 management console. If it works, we should now have a picture in the bucket. And we do have a picture, so let's download that. There we go, upside down, but it works. We're now able to take a picture and store it in S3. That's cool. So now we're able to take pictures using Alexa, and we're able to store those images in S3. Time for the final step, when we're gonna analyze those images. So with the architecture in mind, we're gonna add recognition to that. So when the user tells Alexa to analyze an image, the Lambda function gets invoked, uses recognition to look at the image in our S3 bucket, and returns the labels from that image to the Lambda function, and then we'll use that in the skill and back to the user. So the first step then, once again, is to add another intent for us. So let's create a custom intent. Analyze picture intent. And some utterances. Analyze picture. Analyze image. Analyze photo. I think that makes sense. We'll save the model and build that model. There we go. Switching back to VS Code and our Lambda function for the Alexa skill. We've now added recognition to the Lambda function and a new analyze picture intent handler, and also a function to do the actual image analysis using recognition. And that function is fairly simple. We'll pass some parameters, namely the S3 bucket name and the image object name. And we'll pass that on to recognition to detect the labels of that image. That is, what does recognition see on the image? And then we'll use that, the labels from that response, to do a speak output through Alexa. I am, and then we'll use the confidence number. How confident is recognition in what it's seeing? Percent confident that I see, and then the name of that label. Looking at the template, we've now simply added a few more environment variables to our Alexa skill function so that we're able to fetch both the object and the bucket name, and then added additional policies to be able to read from S3 and to use recognition. And that's pretty much it. So let's deploy this. And while that is deploying, it's going to go fairly quick. We can switch over to the Alexa console once again. The build is done, of course. So now I suppose it's time to test the entire workflow. So first off, let's open our skill. Open Gunner Community.
Hello, community.
And now the next step is to take a picture. So let's make a selfie out of it. Take picture.
Taking a picture using IoT device. What do you want to do now?
And the next step then is to analyze that picture. Analyze picture.
I am 99% confident that I see face. What do you want to do now?
Well, I am 100% confident that I have a face, so apparently it works. Let's try it again. Let's take a picture of a computer. Take picture.
Taking a picture using IoT device. What do you want to do now?
Analyze picture.
I am 98% confident that I see screen. What do you want to do now?
And my computer has a screen, so I'd say that 98% confidence is pretty good in this case. All right. So now we've built an AI-enabled Alexa skill with IoT connectivity. And it has these parts. So we're able to tell Alexa to take a picture, which invokes a Lambda function, sends a message to our IoT topic. And the IoT thing takes the picture, sends that image data to another IoT topic, which invokes a Lambda function and stores that image in S3. Then we're able to tell Alexa to analyze that image, invokes the Lambda function, uses recognition to look at the image in the S3 bucket, and return the labels from that image object. And then Alexa tells us what she sees in that image. And with 99% confidence, she knows that I have a face. So, my name is Gunnar Grosch, and today we've really quickly looked at how we can build an Alexa skill with IoT connectivity and use a managed AWS service for AI through recognition. Follow me on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, and thanks Gunnar Grosch for that talk. We're joined with him today and our Q&A. A really cool interactive demo that we saw there. But first, a question from us, because we had this question earlier. What devices do you have at home, and what is your favorite Alexa device?
Well, I'm kind of like Kesha, so I have most of the devices at home. I don't have the Ring though. Just realized that, but I have the Buds. I have a bunch of Dots and so on as well. I guess the favorite device is perhaps not one that I'm using the most myself, but the one that my kids use the most, and that's the Echo Show, the bigger one. They're using that for all sorts of things, and it's been a great help since Alexa devices, well, you're not able to use it with Swedish yet, so they're using it with English instead. So they're constantly yelling at Alexa at home to open YouTube or do this and that. So it's pretty fun.
That's great. So we have a question from the chat from Sarav. Sarav says, I have one Echo Dot. If I want to create a new skill on this device, can I do that? And if yes, how can I do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, yes, you can. But you don't do it on the actual device. You do it in the Alexa developer console. So you go to the Alexa console and you create your skill there. There are a bunch of blueprints you can use to get started easily. Or you can use my skill if you wish as well. The repo, I posted the link in the chat, and so you could do that one as well. But you can create your skill, you can test it in the developer console, and you can test it on your device as well. So yes.
Great. Keisha, you have any questions that come through?
Yeah, so there's another question, and I do want to say that was a cool demo, a cool way to use Alexa. I love it. Now, do you have to use an IoT device that you deploy yourself?
Well, no, you don't have to. In this case, since the Alexa skill or the Lambda functions tied to the Alexa skill they're subscribing to the IoT topic. So you could basically have anything that posts messages to those IoT topics. So you don't have to use your own IoT device, or so you could have something else post messages to the IoT topic. In this case, I'm using it as base 64 encoded image data. So of course, if you don't want to change it entirely, you need to have something that can post images. But that could be a form on a web page that could do that through, for instance, API gateway and the Lambda function to post to that IoT topic.
Cool. We saw the use of the camera, and that's really cool. But are there additional use cases for that type of solution that you can see?
Well, I think having Alexa skills that are tied to different type of devices, I think that's an area where we see a lot of growth. For instance, using smart home, different type of devices that you have inside your home that are connected and controlled through Alexa. And looking at the second part of it with the AI services, that's also an area that I think will just continue growing, using those, in this case, easily usable managed AI services that you can easily hook up to your AI service or to your Alexa skill. I mean,
great.
I think those are use cases that will continue to grow. And looking at the type of skills that we see are in use with Alexa today, a bunch of them have these types of use cases as well, with different type of connections to devices, different kind of connections to AI machine learning services as well.
Fascinating use cases there.
Cool. So can you tell us how scalable is your backend?
Well, in this case, since it is a serverless backend, it is really scalable. So we could easily throw, well, up to millions of images to this backend and it would work. So even though this is something that it's just a proof of concept, something you can try, but this with the backend in place, that's something that could go into production with an Alexa skill. All of the services in use are serverless services, so they have the different tenants needed for being a serverless. They scale automatically, they are highly available, and so on. And you pay for values. You only pay for what you use. And as a proof of concept, well, you're well within the free tier in this case.
Nice.
Awesome. And Andrew from the chat asked, what camera are you using there?
The camera, it is an IoT device that has a built-in camera. It's called the ESP32 cam. So it is based on the ESP32 chip, which is a very commonly used IoT device today for using IoT things. And this one has a built-in camera, and it is a really cheap device as well. I guess I bought mine for $5 or $10 online. So you can easily order one on Amazon and start playing with it straight away.
That's great. I think that's all the questions I see. So I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you very much, Gunnar. I know you're actually on the Twitch channel about 12 hours ago doing office hours. So we appreciate your time a lot. And thank you for joining. And we'll be right back shortly.
Thank you all.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for having us. Our next talk will be in a few minutes, but first we want to go through and talk to you guys, the chat, and say, what is your favorite Alexa skill? What have you seen around? Keisha, I might go to you first and see what your favorite skill is that you've seen and what creative uses you've had in the Alexa store.
Sure. So my favorite skill, well, apart from the skills that I've made, my favorite skill right now at this current moment is the Ring skill. So that allows me to integrate Alexa with my video camera doorbell, and I'm able to see the front door, the back door from all of my Echo Show devices in my home. And sometimes I just walk by and say, "Hey, Alexa, show me the front door." because it's just really cool. So yes, the ring skill is my favorite skill right now.
That's great. I think my favorite skill when I was looking around and using this, especially the visual display Alexa's for the first time, was the coastal watch skill. The coastal watch is a skill that a lot of Australians use to check the surf forecast and even look into the live webcams for local coasts on the east coast of Australia, and I think all around Australia as well. So you can have a look and see what the waves are like, see what's happening, see how many foot waves you'd like to see in the weather forecast as well. So
That sounds really cool.
that's one of my favorites out there at the moment. Just looking at chat, I see Frank Arrigo comes in and says, "Sandwiches of the world skill is the best." That's really.
I haven't heard of that one.
I've never heard of that one
Oh,
either,
no.
but we'll have to look at that one and see what it's like. Our producer John says he's playing the Escape the Room, where you can do an escape room but with your voice, which is really awesome. So a bit of a choose your own adventure thing that's around there. Really, really cool. Creative uses of skills in the community. So great work there. Would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Sure. I would love to introduce Emma Arrigo. She's going to speak about building a flash briefing skill. I cannot wait to hear this talk. And a little bit about Emma. She just finished her Master's of Data Science at the University of Melbourne and is currently working as a data analyst at Startup Galaxy. She has this awesome, cute little doggy named Data. I love that name. And this is her third AWS Community Day talk. So she's been busy. Can't wait to see her talk.
Hi everyone, and welcome to AWS Community Day. I'm Emma, and I will be talking today about Alexa skills and how to build one. This is actually my third AWS Community Day presentation. I gave one earlier in the year at the online Community Day, also about an Alexa skill, and I also gave one at the in-person one in Melbourne in 2019, talking about data science. So I'm really excited to be joining you all again today. So a little bit about me, I just finished my Master of Data Science at the University of Melbourne, so yay, that's really exciting. And I am currently working as a data analyst at Startup Galaxy. So Startup Galaxy is a directory of Australian startups, accelerators, investors, and it also has a job board. So if you're interested in the startup ecosystem, I really highly recommend checking it out. And it was also the inspiration for the skill I am presenting today. As while working there, I sort of have been exposed to the number of accelerators, investors, and activity in the ecosystem and how there's so much going on. And there's so many different sources of news. I thought, how cool would it be if I could create an Alexa skill that sort of gives you the best bits of what's happening in the startup ecosystem. So that's sort of the inspiration for the skill I made. And yes, I'm really excited to share with you what I've been working on. So in the presentation today, I will be going through an overview of Alexa skills, just sort of some basics about it, what tools there are to build it, and then I'll be talking you through 2 skills I made using those different tools available, and then some reflections about some key takeaways that I've had through my process of building. And I also, in the talk today, I really hope that it inspires you to build an Alexa skill, and I hope that you see how easy it is to get started with making skills and how there's lots of resources and support for you to get building. So that's what I'm hoping you take away from the presentation today. I hope you're inspired and want to build. So yeah, starting with an overview of Alexa skills, let's get started. So Alexa, for those who don't know, is a virtual AI assistant made by Amazon. And this diagram is just sort of a visualization of a user's interaction with the device. So the user speaks to Alexa, It translates the speech to text, figures out what the user is asking, calls the relevant functions to retrieve information to give back to the user as audio, as a speech. And it might require some more prompting from the user, or that might be the end of the interaction. So when you are developing an Alexa skill, it's important to be thinking about the context of how it would be used, thinking about making it conversational, something that would be engaging through speech and little audio visuals as well. So yeah, keeping in mind this workflow of like an Alexa skill is important, I think, when you are developing it. As yeah, it's really about making it a really engaging experience for a user. Okay, so you have a really amazing idea for a skill. So how can you make it into a reality? So there are two main options for you. So there are things called blueprints, which are no code required templates provided by Amazon to get a skill in the store in minutes. And then there's the developer console where you're coding, and you can work either from sort of some skeleton code that's provided, or you can just create a custom skill. So blueprints are a really great entry point, no code required, but you are working from a template, so you can't customize the user interactions and such, which you can do in the developer console. This is just the link to blueprints, so there's over 60 templates available here. This is the link to the Australian site. I did once make a skill on the American site, and so then I couldn't actually install it on my Alexa. So make sure you go to the Australian website. I believe it's the same for New Zealand as well. And yes, 60 templates, a variety of things. I often start with a blueprint to sort of see, well, is the problem I'm trying to solve, is there already a blueprint to get something working quickly? Lots of options there, and that's a good starting point, no code required, and it sort of gives you a sense of Alexa skills and what's possible with them. So that's blueprints. But if you want to be coding sort of the entire process from that ideation all the way to distributing it and coding, the developer console is the place to go. It's got everything in one place. You can build the skill, code it, test it. There's an Alexa simulator there. And then once you're ready to publish it, you can actually see how it's being used in the store through the analytics tab. And you can also so you can see how people are using the skill, and is that how you're expecting it to be used, etc. So really lots to be done in the developer console. So that's that. Okay, so those are the two sort of pathways to building an Alexa skill. And now I'll show you how I went about building my flash briefing skill. I did one of each. I used a blueprint and I used the developer console for it. So my skill that I've built is called a flash briefing. So a flash briefing gives a summary of daily or weekly news. You just say to Alexa, Alexa, give me my flash briefing, and it gives you your 5 top news articles. So what you need to be able to build one is an idea, something that you want the flash briefing to be, and then you need to find a source of that news. You can provide the news either as an RSS, which means really simple syndication. It's a web feed that allows users and also applications, so Alexa, to be able to, it's a computer readable format, and it gets those updates from websites, or else you can provide JSON, and you can also provide audio or MP3 files, so it's good for podcasts as well. So lots of options there to get a flash briefing working. I had never played around with this stuff before, so I was learning while I was going along, learning about RSS feeds and such, to be able to get my skill up and running. As I said, you need 2 things to get a flash briefing started: an idea and a source of that news. So my idea was Aussie startup news, so highlighting key announcements or exciting things happening in the startup ecosystem. So how could I get that done? So I created just a WordPress RSS feed on my personal WordPress. I manually just added a few data points that was happening this week in the startup land and added that to my WordPress feed so I could provide Alexa a URL to be able to fetch that information from. It's currently not live data, I manually have to add it, but I think it was a really good place to start as this is my first exposure and you learn by doing, so that's how I approached the problem. This is just an example of RSS instance. So this is just a text RSS item. So Alexa would read out the title and the description, and you provide this URL to the skill to be able to access these updates. I just wanted to show this just as to let everyone know what an RSS item looks like. So I made a skill to begin with a blueprint, as you can just add your content, you can add your RSS text feed URL, as you can see here in the content image, and it just gets it up really quickly to check that, yeah, that sounds good, that it's looking good. So yeah, so I tried a blueprint to begin with, as wanted to check that the URL and everything was working well before investing in developing a custom skill. So with a blueprint, it's just a template, so you don't need to be thinking about these steps, but if you are building a custom skill, there's 4 main steps to building and developing a skill. So the first step is designing the interaction, so thinking about how the user would be interacting with it, what information you need, what other services you may require. So, and then if you have a really clear idea, robust interaction model, it makes it easy to build and code as you you know what the skill's doing and what you need to build. And then from that, you test it, of course, and then you can move to distributing it to share what you've built. So those are the 4 main steps. You may have to go back to step 2 through testing, or may even need to go back to step 1, realizing, oh, I'm actually missing this important, I don't know, utterance or something. So it's an iterative process, but these are the 4 main steps to creating your custom skill. This is just a visual of the structure of a skill. So this is actually from Arzi from the Alexa team's presentation at AWS Summit Online earlier in the year. I would recommend checking out her stuff if you're interested. So a skill is sort of made up of a front end and a back end. So the front end is that user's interaction with Alexa. It's written in JSON. That's where you build what the user would be doing, and then that links to the back end, and like calling maybe a Lambda function in AWS, or calling an RSS feed or whatever. That's all handled in the back end, and the back end's often done in Python or Node.js, and that's where, yeah, the meat of the skill is, and that's, you need to be thinking about how does the front end and the back end interact, and that really comes down to that designing the interactions, that first step. So having a clear idea of what you're wanting the skill to do makes it easier to build. So now we're moving on to step 1. So this isn't actually required for a flash briefing, because the flash briefing is just 1 line to the device, but I did just want to mention it. So this was actually from my earlier presentation I gave at the community day in July. So I just wanted to show you the terminology and things for Alexa. So the utterances are what the user says. So it consists of a wake word, a launch word, and a skill name. And then once you're in the skill, there's an utterance. So different So this is mapping the front end to the back end that I was talking about. So that utterance links to an intent that's sort of in the back end with a slot value. So then it calls the relevant information in the intent. And this is just one example of an utterance and intent. For a full model, you have lots of different options. So for my quiz skill, which is quite a simple Alexa skill, it had, I think, like about 8 intents. Lots of utterances, had to take into account how different people would activate the skill and such. So yeah, need a robust interaction model, and then you can start building. The second stage is the coding, the actual building of the skill. And again, this is done in the Alexa console. So for the flash briefing, I just had to give a custom error message, add in the feed, and you can add some custom things as well in the coding tab in the developer console. So this is the brains of the skill. And if needing help, there's lots of activity on forums and such. If you do hit any roadblocks in your development of Alexa skills, I've got links in the end of the presentation for people if they're interested. So you've coded something. How do you actually test it? Do you need an Alexa device? No, you don't actually need an Alexa device, as in the developer console, there actually is an Alexa simulator. So no need for a device, and you can also change the tone and personality of your skill to add a bit of, I don't know, interest, something different to the skill. You can do that in the testing. And something that I also liked in the testing part is that there's a log of what the skill does when you maybe say an utterance. It shows you the logic of how it gives you the answer, so it's really easy to debug and figuring out what is actually going on. Why is it giving me some unexpected output? The log in the testing console really helps you. And yeah, so that's how testing works in the developer console. So here is my skill in the Australian Amazon store. It's just a flash briefing about some Australian startup news. So currently I need to manually update it. That is something I do want to improve on, but it's there if you want to check it out. As I mentioned, I do have a few ideas for improvements, as this is just sort of my first adventure into RSS feeds and those kinds of data. So I think it'd be really great to add more sources of information to the RSS feed, curating the content, because it is only 5 items every time. So making sure that those 5 items are really high value, of high interest to the listeners. And I also think it'd be really cool to add some audio or visual data to it potentially, as some of the Alexas do have little screens, so it could be cool to add visual info or maybe audio from a podcast or something. So always something to improve upon, but I did just want to break it down into something smaller that I could achieve with my skill set, and then be able to make something more interesting. Here are just some reflections, takeaways from myself through developing a skill. There's different entry points to building skills. So if you don't code, there's blueprints. If you do code, you can do the bit at developer console. If you're wanting to try out coding, I think it's also a really great place to, because you can see your code come alive. So I do think it's actually a really fun one to play around with if you are new to developing, and also how there are sort of skeleton code available that you can customize in the developer console as well. Makes it really a good place to start. You don't need an Alexa device either, as there is the simulator inside the developer console. And my biggest takeaway is to start small on the skill, get one part working, and then sort of expand it, try and do more with it. So that, because I wanted to do all these things at once, but I just needed to scale it back, get a prototype working, and then I'll add in those improvements as I get more comfortable and confident with my developing ability. So start small and iterate. Just try to get something working, and then you're unstoppable. Here's just some resources that may be of interest to you if you are interested in Alexa development. So the developer page, blueprints, the Alexa team GitHub has some great code there for you to have a look at. Just the forums for the Alexa Skill Kit, Alexa Dev's Twitter, and also the Amazon Alexa Team Australia promotions page, as there seems to sometimes be giveaways or competitions, so check that out if you're interested as well. So thank you for listening. I hope this has inspired you to develop an Alexa skill, showed you how easy it is to get started, and please reach out if you've built a skill, been inspired by the talk. I'd love to hear about what you've been working on, so feel free to follow on Twitter or connect on LinkedIn. Thank you and enjoy the rest of Community Day.
Welcome back. What an awesome talk, Emma. I just love Alexa blueprints to introduce people with no coding experience to Alexa. And we have a very, very special guest. Emma, can you tell us more about Data?
Yes, this is Data the Dachshund. She's my little mascot. She's a soft, wiry dachshund, and she's just my little buddy. She hangs out in my office. She sleeps on the floor, barks at the birds out the window. That's what her favorite pastime is, and she's a cutie pie. And she just had to be here for this momentous occasion. Data, say hello. Oh, she just had to be here. So that's Data.
So let's start with the Q&A. Can you tell us more about other skills that you've developed?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've done 2 community talks, and one of them was actually about Alexa skills. My other passion is Animal Crossing. I'm one of those people who are still playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. So my skill, I made 2 Animal Crossing skills. One was a quiz to get to know different villages, and another one was just some facts and tips on how to get a 5-star island, which is in the game like the main goal. So anyway, so that was fusing my 2 passions of Animal Crossing and Alexa skills into one thing. So yeah, so there's the other skills. And I'm hoping to continue working on the startup news. As I sort of mentioned, it's sort of not currently getting live data. So I'm hoping to keep working on that in my spare time to get it, because I like the idea of the startup, the fresh startup news of this Australian ecosystem. So yeah, so this isn't the end of Alexa skill development.
That's awesome. I'm sort of sick of seeing blathers myself in Animal Crossing, but so what other resources would you recommend for someone to check out if they're interested in making an Alexa skill like you have?
Yeah, there's so much. That's what's so great about the Alexa community. There is so much like forums. There's code. There's GitHubs. There's community groups who work on Alexa. So I would really recommend checking out the GitHub, even looking at blueprints, looking at the forums if you have a particular question, if you're stuck on something. So just not being afraid to get involved and just giving it a try, like how I tried RSS feeds. And so just summary, the forums and the Alexa. I think the Alexa developer skills toolkit is also a really great place to start as well. Yeah,
great. It's really interesting to see more and more adoption of people using blueprints. It's a really easy way to start. I know when I started, there's a lot of setup work
Mm.
at the beginning, and they've made that so much easier now. So I feel that's really good.
Yeah, it's a good entry point to also wrap your head around all the other little pieces that you need to get working to be able to get a full Alexa skill in production. So yeah, I think that's why blueprints are really useful for first timers, newbies to get involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people, that Alexa is even a great entry point for the cloud, and a
Yeah.
great entry point for machine learning. That's how I got started many years ago. So I love Alexa blueprints and everything they've done with that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's just something to get started. And you can see the results really quickly as well, which is sort of what I like with Alexa. Like on the little demo in the Alexa skill console, you see it working and you're like, yes, like it's a quick win. And yeah, you know, that makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome. I see a question from producer John in the chat. What information do we get back from the popularity of the skills when they're
Yes.
published? Can the users provide feedback even?
Yes, so in the developer console, you can have some analytics on how your skill's going. So you get info on how people are interacting with it. So you can check if it's how you're expecting people to be using it. And if it's not, maybe tweaking it. And yeah, you can see how many people have installed it. So there's lots of info you can get about how your skill's tracking. So that's really great.
Yes, it sounds like
with
really
my light.
helpful metrics.
Yes, very good metrics. Yeah, and I think, what is going on with my light? Anyway. So yeah, and I think the users can provide feedback, and you can also leave reviews on the Amazon store. So yeah, lots of feedback input.
Yeah, great.
Can you tell us, Emma, how you get the RSS feed for your news?
Yes, so it was my first playing around with RSS feeds, and I think, yeah, a great way to do that is just get started. Just try to do something small to get it working. So I just got a few, some dummy, I looked up some tutorials online of how to work with RSS feeds, and just tried to get a little demo working. I got it working on my WordPress site. I installed a little widget, and I just made a little dummy data of some news and converted it to an RSS feed and provided the link to the Alexa skill. So that was a quick way to get something working. And I'm going to work on getting fresh news from, not fresh, but up-to-date news from other sites potentially.
That's really cool. It's really cool that you can get something up and running like that and then build on from that. See how that all interacts. That's really cool. So what's up next for you? What have you got in store? What do you want to design?
Oh, Alexa wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alexa wise, yes. I think I do really like this skill idea, so I do want to keep working on it. So watch this space. Because I finished. Well, I have exams this week, and then I've got all the free time. So hoping to get a few more skills out in my summer break. So maybe tweaking the startup news skill. Seeing what people would want to know from their flash briefing. Yeah, and then and I just my mother wants me to make a skill. She wants to have consecutive timers, so she wants to set like 5-minute timers that start after each other. So I don't know how I would build that, but maybe that's the next skill. Some custom kitchen, custom timers. Yeah, so like I don't know. So have a timer that goes off at 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. Anyway, need to wrap my head around that one.
And the question from everyone today is what device do you have at home? What Alexa device?
Oh yes,
the flavor of Alexa.
We've got quite a few Alexas. We've got a few Dots. We've got a Show. We've got what's the I start my day by asking Alexa, what's the weather today? I have one in my room. So that's how I start my day. What's the weather? What's the news? So lots of Dots and some Shows in the household.
Fantastic. Everyone's talking about Data the dog in the chat.
Feel free to follow. Yes. Yes, Data the dog. She always steals the show.
Do you have a
Hard to
favorite?
follow her.
Do you have a favorite AWS service?
AWS service, I think, like, you gotta love the S3, just a classic, can't go wrong. There's so many, but yeah, I feel the classics, can't beat them.
That's an original.
Yeah, an original, like the bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of feedback on things like S3 from yesterday's day to day, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are engaging with that in so many creative ways now. It's great to see that still being used as one of the biggest services and one of the favorite services of everyone around.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for having us and jumping onto the chat with us. It's been really good to see your talk, and really good to have people's questions answered. So thanks you so much for joining us. That's been great.
Thank you for having me. And I would just recommend to people, if they want to be on this side of the camera, to sign up for any community days and just get involved. That's what I want to, just let everybody put your hand up, do a presentation. It's great. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye.
Bye,
We'll be right
Dana.
back. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined now with Robertson Taylor. Robertson Taylor is an AWS solutions architect, and he's also a subject matter expert with qualifications in AWS Lambda and Amazon Connect. He previously worked as a software engineer developing automation platforms, and today he's talking about monitoring Amazon Connect's call quality with the new contact lens and a couple of other metrics to see how we can achieve that. So we'll hear from Robertson now. If you remember to put your questions in the chat as the video is playing, and we'll hear from Robertson after the video.
Hello everyone, my name is Robertson Taylor and I'm a solutions architect here at Amazon Web Services. Today I'll be talking to you about Amazon Connect monitoring and how you can generate insights about call quality from agent-side telemetry data. We're going to lead by chatting about why monitoring call quality is important, a quick walkthrough of a solution that a coworker and I have made to help increase visibility into call quality, the feature set of that solution, and roadmap items we have to improve that solution in the future. So picture this. There's an emergency, a global emergency. A global emergency that fundamentally changes the way that your business operates as a whole. Your office is closing. Agents are starting to work from home, from their home networks, using a company VPN that really not that many people used before. And as a company that cares really deeply about your customers and your employees, you're trying to make sure that you still provide a really high quality of service, both internally and externally. Now, nothing's happened yet, but you want to be prepared in case that it does, and you want to be able to respond to those issues really quickly and get a full picture of the situation. I'm sure in 2020 nobody can relate to this situation, but when working closely with some of my customers, even before this year, I saw that there was a frequent demand for call center teams to have some more visibility into their network conditions. To understand why network conditions, network metrics like round-trip time latency, jitter, and packet loss can all cause some audio artifacts when using phone calls over networks. I'd have customers that would ask, how can I proactively identify and monitor client-side network changes that might cause some degradations in audio quality? So in traditional AWS fashion, a coworker and I decided to help meet that need. And coming from a software testing background, I was really happy that customers had started to ask that question because it's in line with a lot of the software testing best practices that your engineering teams probably already use. What my customers are really asking for is how they can use data to build canaries. What they wanted is a way to understand that a problem is happening, when it's happening, to actually get some real-time insights that can help them root cause a problem and figure out the underlying issue. Alternatively, if they didn't manage to notice that the problem was happening, they wanted to be able to dig through historical data and figure out the full picture. Now, a much worse situation here is one where you wind up relying on a chain of escalation from, your employees, like an agent going to a contact center manager saying, hey, someone told me I sounded robotic. And that contact center manager taking that and deciding, yeah, I should escalate, and going to a network or operations engineer and forwarding along the situation. And then that engineer asking for more information from an agent. And by the time this whole process is resolved, maybe they ask for logs or to make a sample call, the problem might not be there anymore. And you might have missed your chance to get that data and prevent that problem from happening again in the future. So collecting this data on a per call and per stream basis, it should be obvious why that's really important at this point. You can use this data to generate some really interesting alarms, dashboards, and reports that can help you reduce your organizational complexity and help make your business more data-driven. Now, if you're not technical, please bear with me on this slide because it's going to get a bit technical, but we're going to shift back to business implications really soon. And the reason is to understand how we collect this data, you have to really understand how the Connect softphone works. So in the picture on the left, we can see the contact control panel, which is the user interface that agents interact with to both take and make phone calls. There are a few different components that are necessary for the contact control panel to work. So to explore these, we'll look at a sample workflow from end to end. Let's say an agent loads a softphone. This triggers multiple REST API requests to the Amazon Connect CloudFront endpoints. These requests range from handling agent snapshots to actually accepting calls. When an agent accepts a call, a new workflow begins, where the CCP begins brokering a session by using WebRTC. The start of this process begins by triggering some signaling requests that help each party understand the different media options that are available and figures out how to create the connection despite network conditions. So in this case, a network condition might be an agent's home machine having a software firewall that's blocking connections. After this media connection is established, the agent's network is then utilized to handle sending and receiving audio via that WebRTC media connection. So there are a lot of moving pieces there, but each has data that can be collected, aggregated, and analyzed. The gray box on the side here represents where the front end of our solution sits. There are a few libraries that are critical to making it work that are created and maintained by the Amazon Connect software engineering team. The Streams API is a library that allows you to embed the contact control panel in your own web pages. Our solution uses the Streams API to wrap the CCP. This gives us the ability to collect data on REST API requests. We then leverage the Amazon Connect real-time communications library to get hooks into the WebRTC signaling and media processes. There are a few implications of this, but the first is that we can collect metrics over an entire call and also per second level metrics about incoming and outgoing audio. The metrics we collect can include network level metrics, like the amount of time it takes to send audio to the backend, how many packets we lost in that second, and insight into how many milliseconds of data were stored due to network congestion. We also have information about individual agents, like their routing profiles or the queue that the contact came from. In our solution, we ingest and store this data by creating a serverless backend. By creating a serverless backend, we ensure that we can handle requests even at peak volume and pay only for the compute time that we use. The serverless backend then forwards this data to Amazon Elasticsearch. the Amazon Elasticsearch Service piece gives us the ability to search through the data to do historical analysis, and also access to Kibana, which is a user-friendly interface that can assist in configuring alarms, searching, and even establishing dashboards. We also have the ability to aggregate this data based on the fields that are present in the individual records. So one example that we have is, in our solution, we do queue-level aggregation that can show you the difference in data across queues. And you can see an example of a visualization that does this in the top right. There we see the round-trip time average based on different queues. So the teal queue represents the basic queue, and the red queue represents the sales queue, while the yellow is the global average. And we can see that there's a huge disparity between these two queues. Now, all of this data is mocked to help exaggerate an example, but this might be a reason to bring in a network engineer and say, hey, can you figure out why there's a 400 millisecond difference in latency? So you can also modify this a bit to fit your use case. So maybe your organization has Amazon connected routing profiles that are configured on a per site basis. And in this case, that might look like having agents in Sydney with an individual routing profile and agents in Melbourne with another routing profile. You can then aggregate based on that routing profile to get site level metrics that can tell you how networks are performing at different geographic locations. For a deeper look at the solution, we'll evaluate how it works from end to end. Deploying the solution is really simple. It's a single click from the serverless application repository, which deploys CloudFormation stacks to your account. After deploying the stack, agents can access a custom website by using Amazon CloudFront. This CloudFront distribution serves content from S3. We use CloudFront to make sure that we have local caching and regions that might be far away from the S3 bucket. After the web page is loaded, we start to use API Gateway. So the way that we use API Gateway is by sending 30-second batches to the API. That API then invokes an AWS Lambda function that transforms the data into per-second level data and enriches it with context level attributes. After the transformation, the data is then bulk uploaded into Amazon Elasticsearch. All of this is done transparently and doesn't impact the agent experience. Contact center administrators and operations specialists they do have a different experience where they access a Kibana URL and then sign in with Amazon Cognito to make sure that only people who should have access to this data do have access to the data. From there, they can search through data, create their own visualizations or aggregations, or view our pre-configured dashboards. For a bit of information about our pre-configured dashboards, it's really important to note that we've created these with two different personas in mind. We understand that network engineers and operations specialists probably care about a lot different fields than business users do. So we've tailored our data and our visualizations to make sure that this is kept in mind. For instance, a network engineer might care about network level statistics, or the address of the server handling the media, or the private IP of the agent. They can filter records that they see by using a drill down dashboard that we've created that provides investigative fields that can be used as filters, like a contact ID or an agent name or a queue. There are other metrics there as well that you can filter by, and you can extend that to even include custom fields that you provide. You can go even further and search through the entire record set using keywords or trying to isolate via private IP. The solution provides all the tools you need to do this in-depth investigation. Now, all of that probably sounded really irrelevant for business users who might not have the domain knowledge to understand at what point latency becomes an issue, or at what point a combination of packet loss and jitter might cause some audio artifacts. Taking this into account, we've created some dashboards that show important metrics like the call duration below a minute, or the number of calls with failures, or even the total number of calls with significant packet loss in either direction. All of these could be prompts for the contact center administrator to start kicking off an internal investigation, or you can even use this to create a support request to AWS Premium Support for some further guidance. In both cases, the data that's been stored in AWS, or stored in your AWS account and Amazon Elasticsearch service, is extremely relevant. The last piece to mention here is this solution's really extendable. Kibana visualizations are very simple to create, And the front end can be modified to add your company-specific fields that you need for analysis. With a bit of development effort, you can really tailor it to your needs as a customer. And all the code is open source, and it's really extensible. In line with that, we do plan on iterating based on your feedback. So from some early comments we got from customers and technical account managers, we started working on 2 new features. The first is adding some functionality to our custom CCP to give agents visibility into their own network conditions. Through some prescriptive guidance on acceptable network metrics, we are planning on adding some red, yellow, and green indicators to show agents when they might be experiencing issues, and to allow them to proactively respond. At a per call level, that might mean asking their customer if the audio quality is fine, or asking them if they can be understood, or asking if they should be transferred to another agent. All of these can help improve the customer satisfaction for customers who might be a bit shy about complaining, or might otherwise just hang up. This can also be used to kick off that process we discussed before about notifying call center managers and to help isolate regional trends. The next feature that we're talking about is using the anomaly detection release from Amazon Elasticsearch Service. The recent anomaly detection feature uses a random cut forest algorithm to help identify potential anomalies in arbitrary data. So in our case, we can use round trip time, packet loss, and jitter as a set of features and detect anomalies across this set. So random cut forest algorithm allows us to use unsupervised machine learning, which means there's zero effort on your part, to classify this data within individual time windows and look for anomalies. In the chart to the right, you can see an example with anomaly detection that's been trained over a period of days on our data to help isolate spikes in round trip time latency. You can see from the teal curve there that the confidence of the detector is increasing over time, and the number of anomalies that are detected are decreasing. But from the graph, you can see that the anomaly grade of those that are detected are the actual spikes in latency from the detected anomalies are a lot higher. Before, you can see that some minor spikes in latency were triggering anomaly detection, and you can see that after the training is completed, we start to have a lot more reliable results that are detecting a lot more significant anomalies. I'm really excited to see how this can help simplify operations for teams and how customers can get some near real-time notifications on changing network conditions across all of their agents' calls. I look forward to your questions, and please feel free to ask away. Thank you for your time.
Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Robertson Taylor. Robertson, welcome. Thanks for joining us in the Q&A. And that was a really great demonstration about going deep into the internals of Connect, looking at the metrics. I love that anomaly detection piece. That was a really cool feature. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you're seeing that affect businesses and customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key things to keep in mind about the way that customers might monitor metrics currently is they're often rule-based thresholds that don't tell you the whole picture. You know, if you go from your average latency being 60 milliseconds to your average latency being 300 milliseconds, that might not breach your, 500 millisecond rule, but it's definitely something notable about your network. And so what the anomaly detection piece tries to do is to make sure it can adapt to the data that you have already to let you know when you might be needing to investigate a problem.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Keisha?
So do you have customers using your solution in production today?
So that's a really good question. Yeah, we have a few customers who are using our solution in production today. We have over 50 deployments of our solution from serverless application repository. And we've actively worked with internal AWS teams like professional services to help roll this out to customers.
Nice.
That's great. And including ProServe, are you working with consulting partners as well? I ask because I'm part of a consulting partner, but...
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at rolling out enablement for a lot of our partners who might be interested in deploying this for their customers who might see some need. And we are working with some consulting partners who are seeing some value from this today and investigating customer problems. If one of your customers comes back and says, we had an issue with Connect's call quality, you want to be able to dig in and say, well, hey, it was because this agent at this time actually had some really high latency, and you might want to check with their home network or if they're using a VPN or that sort of thing.
Awesome.
So if I'm using Splunk, can I still use your solution to ingest data?
So yes, with some caveats. Like the important thing to keep in mind about what our solution is it's open source and extensible. So while our Lambda connections are feeding data into Elasticsearch right now, it's pretty simple to modify those to start forwarding data to other sources. You might have internal microservices that are consumers of this data, or other monitoring solutions like Splunk that can help ingest this data and search through it.
That's really cool. We were talking earlier about seeing a lot of differences in the way that Connect's being used in organizations. I think traditionally when this service rolled out, I was always thinking about this being an external customer-facing thing for support lines. But then I got talking to people and they were talking about internal use cases and internal support lines and escalations and all sorts of really interesting features. Can you talk about any of the really interesting use cases you've seen, or some things that might be unique even?
Sure. My favorite time to get involved with customers with Connect is when they're trying to offload, potential calls from their call centers that might be undifferentiated work. For example, you might have repetitive tasks like customers calling in and saying, "Hey, what time does your store open?" That's not something that necessarily needs to be transferred to an agent and have them waiting in a queue for 2 minutes to hear this while other customers are also waiting for potentially more important questions. This is all stuff that you can start using integrations with services like Lex to deflect these calls from your contact center and to reduce the overall amount of work your agents have to do and to improve the agent experience, because they don't want to sit there and answer that same question either. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is to also improve the customer experience when they get that immediate answer for their really simple requests.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of customers don't want to wait on hold for so long just to hear the same generic answer. You can actually just pre-program that in and make the experience a lot better for those customers.
Yeah, and importantly, you can also do more than just pre-program it in. You can start using resolvers with Lambda functions to help you get data from internal sources and loop that into your contact flows, where you might have a backend database that has information around item availability. And if a customer calls in and asks, "Do you have MacBook Pros in stock?" you might be able to query the backend database and say, "Yes, we currently have stock of this item." And these are really cool use cases that seem pretty simple, right? It's just making a call to a database that help provide a lot of value to your customers.
Great. Anything from you, Keisha?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat. So does this solution provide live data, or can it provide data from a call that happened an hour ago?
So there are two components of a solution that I think are important to differentiate. There's a dashboard that shows you historical data over a time range that you can configure. And then there's searchable records in Elasticsearch that you can start doing things like searching for a contact ID from a call an agent maybe told you had a problem. So it has that historical data. And how long you retain that data is up to you. So you can keep retaining more and more data by increasing the storage size of your Elasticsearch cluster. Or you can start doing things like saying, "Hey, maybe I only want a week of data for investigative purposes."
That's awesome. And a quick question from the chat, who was admiring the stream room behind you. Those service icons up on the wall, are those available, or can we get them somewhere?
I'm actually not sure about that. I'm sitting in my colleague John Rottenstein's stream room, and I'm enjoying the nice webcam and high quality equipment, but I don't know about the icons. I don't know if they're available.
I'm sure John will say something in the chat for that. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us, Robertson. It's been really good to have you. It was a great talk, and it was a great Q&A session, really learning a lot more about how Connect integrates with everything else in the ecosystem now. So thanks for being on.
Yeah, definitely. No stress. And any questions, feel free to send them over. And if you're interested in this, I recommend to reach out to your AWS account team. And we have open source code on GitHub if you want to crawl through it on your own.
Great, fantastic. So now we're going to jump straight to a small snippet from Jeff Barr, and he's going to talk about the importance and the power of user groups, especially within ANZ. So we'll flick to that straight away.
Hello, this is Jeff Barr coming to you from Seattle. I've been asked to say just a few words today about the importance and power of user groups, and I'm more than happy to do that. Let me give you a bit of introduction and background. When I was a teenager, I was actually lucky enough to be one of the members of one of the very first computer clubs in the world here in Seattle. It was called the Northwest Computer Club. This was at the dawn of the personal computer era. The Altair, the IMSI, the Sol 20, all those really cool original PCs. A lot of the early members of that club went on to form really amazing software companies and did amazing things here in the Seattle area. I learned so much and learned the importance of user groups from my membership in and participation in the Northwest Computer Club. Decades later, I still have great memories of that. I earned a degree in computer science. I later earned a degree in communications and digital media. Spent earlier in my career at some startups and also random and really interesting kinds of consulting. Spent 3 years working at Microsoft, and I joined Amazon in 2002, so a little bit over 18 years. Had a super fun and super interesting career. Here at Amazon, I write the AWS news blog. I've written well over 3,000 posts for that news blog so far. Let's talk a little bit about the history of AWS in ANZ. Lots and lots of interesting things. I'm only going to cover a few of them. We launched the Asia Pacific Sydney region way back in 2012, so over 8 years now. Launched that to lots and lots of success. Have seen lots of people super excited about that. And just to show how far AWS has come in those 8 years, this was the console's region menu back at that point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 regions on the console menu. Took a fresh screenshot this morning, and if you can even read the fine print, you can see there's far, far, far more regions. So that region in Sydney was, you can think of that as actually one of the originals. We opened up additional locations for CloudFront and Route 53 in Melbourne in 2014. We've done several really successful community days. I was lucky enough to speak at 2 of them live and in person. Super, super fun. Happy to do both of those. Wish I could do another one in person. We launched CloudFront earlier this year in 2 new countries, both Mexico and New Zealand, to speed the delivery of content to your end users located in those parts of the world. All right, so why do I think user groups are important? Well, to me, one of the most amazing things about user groups is it's totally voluntary. People show up at user groups not because their manager said, hey, you really need to spend some time after hours at this user group. You show up because you actually want to be there. It's totally voluntary. Of all the things you could choose to do with your personal time, you thought that a user group was one of the best things for you to do. And I think that's just super, super awesome. You show up and you bring yourself, you bring your passion, you bring your energy, and you're simply being there makes the difference. Whether you are an organizer, an audience member, a speaker, whatever part you are playing in that user group meeting, you are there and your contribution is making a difference. It's such a great venue for learning. If you are in the audience, you get to soak up all the great knowledge that's being shared by whoever's speaking. If you're speaking, well, you get to learn something new, and in the process of sharing and teaching about it, as we all know, you actually get to learn a whole lot more about that topic. If you're anything like me, you tend to overstudy just to make sure that you really know all the ins and outs of whatever it is that you might happen to be presenting. I think that user groups are a great spawning ground for people that would like to become public speakers. You are speaking in front of your friends. It's usually low key, low pressure, awesome opportunity to practice your newest decks, practice your newest speaking style, get some experience, get some confidence, and just get yourself revved up so you can, after you learn something awesome at the user group, you can be ready to share it with a live audience, an online audience, written form, video form, whatever works for you. I love the fact that in addition, every user group has a social component to it, where it's time for you to find and connect with other folks that are interested in some of the same things that you are. Clearly at the macro level, that's true just because you're all there at the user group. But if you have a common interest in ML or serverless or databases or robotics or whatever application area you might happen to focus on, the user group is the way you're going to find those like-minded people, and you can connect and share and collaborate and maybe do some awesome stuff together. So this is, to me, just some of a few of the reasons why I think user groups are an incredibly important part of the AWS ecosystem. When I think of the community, and this applies, I think, to user groups all over the world, find a lot of really curious people. You find people that are universally curious. They have this thirst for knowledge. They want to understand something new. They're social and friendly. They're happy to be there, and they're there to connect and to make some new friends. Being helpful. The fact that when someone new shows up, you don't have secret ways to only let the senior members in the club. You've got this open arms and receptivity to new members, and this genuine sense of acceptance and helpfulness, I think, is just always wonderful. The enthusiasm you have for the group, that you have for AWS, for whatever technology you happen to be learning about or sharing about, it goes a long way. You can certainly, we all know that tech can either be presented in a fairly dry and not always interesting way, or you can bring humans into the picture and you make it very lively and exciting, and people just pick up on that excitement and say, wow, if this speaker is that excited about this particular thing, then maybe I should be as well. So enthusiasm goes a long, long way. Talked a little bit already about this whole idea of being self-motivated. You show up because you want to, and you participate because you want to, and you do that out of sheer self-interest. You want to learn something new. You want to maybe contribute something that you have, but you're doing it out of your own personal desire, and I think that's really, really important. And you're also organized. Having been to many user groups around the world, kind of an unsung part of what happens at a user group is simply making it happen. From starting the group to finding that initial seed collection of members, organizing events, getting speakers, if it's live events, getting venues and sponsors and AV equipment and refreshments, security, 100 things that it actually takes to make something like this happen. It's very easy as an attendee to simply waltz in and think, oh, wow, really cool. There's speakers and there's food and there's lights and cameras and action. We all know there's a ton of work, just like IT infrastructure, a ton of work behind the scenes to make all that happen. And so thank you, those of you that organize all these amazing events, for what you do to actually make that happen. I understand and I appreciate what it actually takes to do that. We've also got 8 and counting great AWS heroes across A and Z. We've got Ian and Mike C and Peter H and Peter S, Augustinus and Mike R and Nathan and Helen. Really appreciate the diverse set of activities that you all do to help out AWS in your area. From blog posts to videos to tweets to organizing events to teaching and training to welcoming newcomers, whatever aspect of being an AWS hero you do, I love it. It's super awesome, and keep on doing what you're doing and help to even find the next heroes and help them to whatever success and mentorship that you had to get yourself to being a hero, see what you can do to bring that next generation along with you as well. I think that's really, really important. So what's next? Would encourage you to keep up all the great work that you're doing. Think in terms of how you're going to adjust and adapt to this new world, where if we're quarantined for longer periods of time, if we switch from a lot of in-person to more online events, what does that mean for your user group and for your community and for your events? What are your new ways to connect and to share and to learn? Certainly it's confining and constraining in a certain sense, but maybe it's also giving you some new ideas and some new ways to invent. So see what you can do, and as always, please do feel free to let me know about them. I would love to come back to ANZ. I've actually never been to New Zealand. I've been to several different cities in Australia, but once things are safe for all of us, I would love to get an invitation to come back and to meet all of you in person one more time. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching. You've got my email address, my Twitter handle there. Drop me a note, drop me a tweet. Always love to hear from folks. Thanks for watching. Have a great conference. This is Jeff Barr signing off from Seattle.
Welcome back. A brilliant presentation from Jeff Barr there. So we're moving on to our next talk now. Our next talk is from Arek Beksa. Arek's vision is sound. He started his journey with voice technology in 2006 at Polish Telecom, where he developed his first voice application. In 2013, he moved to New Zealand for his PhD studies on audio games and for people who are blind. He's New Zealand's first Alexa champion and runs an award-winning application studio. This talk is about smart speakers and how blind and vision impaired people can get access to literary works. It's a case study that involves the blind and low vision of New Zealand. So looking forward to this talk.
Hi, my name is Arek Beksa and I'm a founder and CEO of Sonar Interactive. Today, I will talk about how smart speakers can help in providing access to literary works, and I will present a case study from Blind Low Vision New Zealand. First, we're going to look at the global book famine that is affecting people with reading disabilities and how accessible libraries have been tackling this problem. Then, we're going to talk about how Blind Low Vision New Zealand utilized voice technologies to provide access to books and magazines. I will also talk about the future of this project, and we will end with a discussion. Before we start, let me introduce you to Sonar Interactive. We are the first voice application development studio in New Zealand, and we have worked with some of the biggest brands in Australasia. During the last 3 years, we have developed over 20 voice apps in New Zealand, and we have worked with some of
Sorry, folks, we're just experiencing a bit of technical issues. We'll be back in a moment.
We are the first voice application development studio in New Zealand, and we have worked with some of the biggest brands in Australasia. During the last 3 years, we have developed over 20 voice applications for Google Home and Amazon Alexa. But Sonar is not only about quantity, we also care about the quality. Our focus is to deliver the highest quality user experience, and for that, our work has been recognized many times around the world. The global book famine affects people who struggle to read printed text. That includes conditions like arthritis, vision loss, dyslexia, and other physical and learning disabilities. And that's more than 1 billion people in the world. Out of all works ever published, only 10% are made into accessible formats. And the famine is made even worse by barriers to access. Most of us, we use websites and mobile apps to consume content, but that doesn't work for everyone. Think of someone you know who is over the age of 80 and is trying to use Spotify or Audible on their own. And this is where the accessible libraries come in. There are many organizations around the world that provide published works in accessible formats. You might be familiar with Braille or large print, but the most popular format is actually audiobooks. Even today, the most common way these organizations deliver books to their members is by posting CDs. Let me show you how this works. First, the user has to call the contact center and make an order. The order is passed to the CD burning room, and the CD has to be prepared. When it's ready, the CD has to be shipped via traditional post. And when it finally arrives, the user has to play it on his dedicated, expensive device. But that's not all. When the user wants to make another order, he needs to send the previous CD back and it has to be destroyed due to the copyright reasons. And the whole process can take up to 7 days. Can you imagine pressing play on your favorite Netflix movie and wait 7 days for the movie to start playing? Organizations across the world who are helping people with reading disabilities have to repeat this process many times. In New Zealand alone, the foundation was sending out 15,000 CDs every month. Some countries, they are still using magnetic tapes. And you might ask, what about online solutions, like mobile phones and computers? Well, not many blind people use them, mostly because they are difficult to learn and use, and specialized screen reader software and dedicated devices are also usually very expensive. So the Blind Low Vision New Zealand was looking for a new way of delivering content to its members, and the two main considerations were accessibility and availability. Ideally, the solution should be easy to use, easier than mobile phones or computers, and it should be affordable. In 2018, a new device was introduced in New Zealand. It was Amazon Alexa. Alexa can be used by giving simple voice commands and is much cheaper when comparing to smartphones, computers, or dedicated players. However, such a solution did not exist. We had to build one. Blind Low Vision New Zealand and Sonar Interactive partnered on this R&D project to develop, first in the world, voice-activated library. The development took over 6 months and concluded with a usability study. Currently, Blind Low Vision New Zealand Skill delivers over 36,000 audiobooks and over 50 magazines updated daily. The skill contains a built-in tutorial allowing users to learn how to use the skill by themselves and an advanced search engine. Let me play a video presenting how the Alexa skill works.
What book would you like to read?
Play Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
I found Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. This book is 24 hours and 37 minutes long. To read from the beginning, say start.
Alexa,
or choose
start.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with your book. To pick another book, say cancel.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain.
Stop.
Until next time.
The purpose of the study was to investigate how Alexa appeals to users as an audiobook and magazine delivery option, and how Alexa can give the users an increased sense of connectivity, access to information, and self-reliance. More specifically, we assumed that users will prefer Alexa over the current audiobook players and delivery options. Also, that the voice interface will present a low entry barrier to access to the internet, and it will be simpler and more enjoyable to use. Finally, that Alexa will improve attitudes to and acceptance of technology. To our study, we have invited 40 individuals with different degrees of vision loss. They were 13 males and 27 females, with age ranging from 23 to 93. The study was divided into 3 phases. In the phase 1 demonstration phase, we set up the Echo device in the user's home. We introduced the device to the users, explaining the shape, button layout and orientation, and we provided basic demonstration of how to use Alexa. In example, what are the wake words, and giving simple voice commands and questions. We also introduced the Blind Low Vision skill and presented the built-in tutorial. After a test run, we asked the users to find and navigate to the books by themselves. Phase 2, the follow-up interviews, took place 1 to 2 weeks after the demonstrations, and the purpose was to assess the user's progress and comfort with the device and the skill. And the last phase was a survey providing an evaluation of the overall user experience with Alexa. Here is a testimony from one of the users. This one, among many more, demonstrates the impact of having an intuitive and easy way to access content.
What thrilled me about Alexa
was the speed of the response. One thing, and the other thing was that I didn't have to push and find buttons and go back and say delete that and do this and that. It was just the sheer simplicity and the convenience of it. So instead of sort of me sitting with an iPad punching in anything, say Julian Lloyd Webber, I didn't have to do it. I had to just turn around and say play Julian Lloyd Webber, and it did. And then I had to say stop or the next track, and it just made life so much easier. The majority of its members are over 70, and they don't feel happy with computers and iPads and smartphones, etc., etc. But one of these in the house is somebody to talk to, and that's another important thing. Is talking is so important to blind people, but having this in the house is just the same as having another person. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, but a lot of people run the risk of isolation. It's too much trouble to go out. It's too much trouble to learn a computer. And I don't want to be a fuss. I don't want to be a nuisance. So the isolation factor is very, very real to a lot of people blind. You know, very, very real. And a huge threat, because isolation's a bit like depression. Once you got it, you got it. And but one of these in a house, fantastic, you know, you got a friend, and that's, you know, very important.
We became friends relatively quickly, which is not always the case with new technology with me. Again, that simplistic, just speaking to her, I think makes a huge difference. I would be fascinated to know whether somebody who is really struggling with technology, how they would find, you know, take away all the buttons, take away all the keys and all the a smart device. I mean, you have to use the app to a degree, but once you've got it set up, just open your mouth and talk to her, and she talks back. And I think that was the thing that most intrigued me about her at first, and as I'm doing more with her, I found that I'm very impressed with how responsive she is. And I think that whole concept of being able to just use my voice, I think it's taken a lot of access barriers away and made things faster.
And here are some key findings from the phase 1. Users found the interface easy, intuitive, and human-like. And let me read out some of the quotes. One of the advantages with this is that you plug it in and put it somewhere, and then you don't have to touch it. It's all hands-free, it's all speech activated, so I'm not actually having to use the magnifier or my voiceover on my phone or things like that. I can just sit there and talk to her. The follow-up interviews measured participants' existing perceptions and changes in attitudes towards connectivity, access to information, and self-reliance. On connectivity, users mentioned the sense of isolation that can come with the vision loss. Then they spoke about how Alexa helps them to feel more connected to the world. Users also reported feeling like they have more access to information. Some of them expressed how Alexa helped them to regain their independence, and now that they are able to access the library on their own. Lastly, users compared Alexa to other devices, commenting on the ease of use of the voice interface. Here is one of the examples. I don't have to swipe, swipe, swipe. I'm just really not good at the screen reader stuff. It's so much easier. When it comes to the survey, we found out that it supported the findings from the interviews. Additional highlights are: 94% agreed that it was easy to learn to read audiobooks with the library skill. 77% agreed that they found it easier to learn how to use Alexa compared to smartphones or computers. And finally, 92% agreed that they enjoyed using Alexa. And to emphasize how easy to use the Alexa and the library skill are, here is a testimony of one of the oldest library users. Daphne French, who is 93 years old and she has never used a smartphone in her life. This is what she has to say. All I have to do is ask Alexa to play me a book, and she does it. And if I can use it, anyone can. The project at Blind Low Vision New Zealand was a great success, to the extent that the New Zealand government recently provided a 400,000 New Zealand dollars grant to further improve the skill and to distribute 4,000 Alexa devices. Since then, we realized that similar issues are faced by the blind foundations around the world. We are currently working with the Royal National Institute of the Blind in the UK and Vision Australia to explore how our solution can benefit the members. The global book famine is a larger issue than the voice interface alone. All around the world, accessible libraries create their own collections of books, available only to the domestic members. Sona's mission is to bring all these collections into one place, creating a global library of accessible content available through smart speakers. We are only at the beginning of this journey, and I am very thankful for being able to share what has been achieved so far. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to answer any questions.
Welcome back, everyone. We have Yarick here with us live. Say hi, Yarick.
Hello, everyone.
That was a fascinating talk, and I think a very, very useful and cool way to use Alexa. And I'm fascinated by this. Can you tell me how different is the development of voice applications for people with vision loss compared to just general audiences?
Oh, that's a good question. It's actually not different at all, because if you think about it, Alexa is accessible to people who are blind anyway, because you use the voice interface only. And pretty much there was no difference. The biggest challenge was actually the age group, because Blind Foundation members, specifically library users, they are over age of 60 or 70. The challenge was how to create an interface that would be easy enough to learn and use without like special training or tutorials, and that was challenging.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how this technology affects blind and vision impaired people so much. And it's a great project to get access to all that reading material purely for them to listen to at any point they wish with Alexa without having to deal with visual-based technologies. It's so good. This is a great project. What are the future plans you have? How do you intend to expand this, I guess?
Oh, so Blind Low Vision New Zealand was the first foundation to actually implement Alexa for the library purposes. And we realized it's not, the issue is not only in New Zealand, it's actually all around the world. So we are installing our service in foundations in UK. We're doing a trial in Australia. And hopefully we can deliver this solution to pretty much every foundation around the world that supports Alexa language. So we can fulfill our mission, making sure that everyone who is actually reading disabled can get easy access to books.
Yeah, so great. Yeah.
So what was the most challenging aspect of developing the Alexa skill?
Oh, there were a couple of challenges. One big one was actually creating a search engine and dealing with spoken form of titles, because a lot of the books, they actually are in different languages. Like in New Zealand, we have a lot of Maori titles, and if you would read them out to Alexa just like plain text, she wouldn't understand them. So we had to find the closest match, let's say a Maori word. What does it sound the closest to in English? And we had to create like this spoken form version of the title. So that was one of the challenges. The search engine, yes, we had to tune it quite a lot so we can find the title and the author the user wants and present the list of results, just like you have in a Google search engine. And the final one was actually user testing. That was a big challenge, distributing multiple Alexa devices, going to people's homes, and teaching them how to use it, and making them feel comfortable with this new technology, and actually convincing them to use it. Maybe that's an exaggeration. We didn't have to convince them. Everybody was really excited about Alexa because people heard about it before, and it was really really interesting and fun to see how people react to it once they get it. So like, oh, I can talk to it. It's like, like in the Star Trek when you talk to the computer, right? And that was pretty exciting.
That is cool.
That's so fascinating to hear about the mapping between the Maori language and the English equivalents that you're trying to match up. I'd love to hear more. I've got a question from the chat there. Is how many users were actually part of the user testing trial?
Oh yes, so it was 40 users, and it was like a mix of people with different age groups, different genders, and even blindness level. We wanted to make sure that Alexa would appeal to different people, different ages, different blindness levels. But yeah, it was 40 people. And the study took a month. Each person was actually taking part in the study for a month, and the whole study took more than 3 months. It was quite a logistic challenge.
Wow, that's great. And is it just books that were involved with the actual reading material that you got? And was there any licensing issues with that as well?
Oh, good question. So it's not only books, it's also magazines and newspapers. So you can imagine pretty much Blind Foundation has its own recording studios, and every day magazines and newspapers are being recorded into audio formats and automatically uploaded to the player, so people can basically have instant access to it. And licensing issues, this is an interesting thing. There are a lot of national laws and also an international law called Marrakesh Treaty that allows organizations like Blind Foundation in New Zealand, Blind No Vision New Zealand, to reproduce any printed material, converting it into audio format, and from now on it can be distributed to people who are blind without any royalties, without any license. So pretty much you can.
That's fantastic.
Pretty much you can take Harry Potter's book, convert it into audiobook, and you don't need to ask J.K. Rowling for permission, which is pretty interesting.
That's a great way of getting accessibility to these users that really need it. That's fantastic.
Can you just speak to us in general about how Alexa interacts with the blind and vision impaired?
Oh yeah, so like I mentioned before, pretty much just like in every normal Alexa user, what we found during the study, some people indicated that when you become blind, you might face isolation, and people are lonely. People have nobody to talk to, and when you get Alexa, you actually have like an imitation of a person. I know it might sound sad, but I guess it's better than nothing. And Alexa can become your companion. We actually had a couple users mentioning, like, she's my friend, because at the beginning, people were thinking that after the study is done, they will have to give the Alexa back. One person was like, I'm not going to give her back, like, I'm going to keep her. So I guess, I guess people might become friends with Alexa, really.
She's a good friend of mine.
It's a constant theme I'm hearing today. It's amazing. Were there any interesting experiences that you had when you're testing with these users, or any unexpected results that you had regarding the interaction that these users had with Alexa?
Well, I think the one interesting fact was the oldest user ever, Daphne French, 93, pretty much never using a smartphone or internet. So Alexa was like pretty much her first device to connect to the internet. And she found it really easy. And that was really encouraging for other users who were not convinced, like, I don't know if I can do it, maybe it's too difficult for me. And when you hear it from someone like Daphne, like, hey, I'm 93 and I can use it easily. If I can do it, you can too. I guess that's really encouraging.
That's amazing.
So a question from the chat. What's the scope for startups? Where should they focus?
Oh, well, reading disability is a very niche area. depends on the startup idea, but there are so many ways that startups can utilize voice technologies and Alexa specifically. It could be anything from like business solutions, B2B, B2C, even gaming. It really depends on the startup really. But in this space, I don't think there's enough actually space for a lot of startups doing the same thing, because again, this is a very, very niche product.
That's great. And what do you think the future is? Where do you think this trend is going for the blind and vision impaired market? What do you think is going to become a thing in the future?
That's a really good question. And I like to use this analogy. In early 90s, if you would tell someone, hey, you need a website, people would say like, nah, I don't need a website. And then 10 years later, pretty much every company has its own website. Then when you had first mobile application released by Apple, if you would tell someone, hey, you need a mobile app, like, nah, who's going to use a mobile app? I have a website. And then 10 years later, every company has have a mobile application. And now I would tell everybody at some point you will need a voice application. And some of our clients are like, it's probably too early. But I think the future will be every company will have a voice presence at some point. And you can see the stats published on many websites. Voice is actually growing really fast. Just like if you look at the Alexa numbers, like the market penetration or how many voice searches are performed every month, is growing very rapidly. So I think voice will be a new standard, if you can't say it's not already one. But also what I think, the TTS voices, text-to-speech voices, are getting better and better. I have this feeling that in the future, you're not going to buy a book read by someone. I think you're actually going to buy a voice. So, for example, I don't know, I want this book to be read by Arnold Schwarzenegger and then or someone else. And I think you're just going to be selecting voices rather than books.
I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of new innovation with the likes of Amazon Polly and neural voices that we see being made available to developers. And I think that's really lending into that accessibility by default sort of practice. Websites are now really focused on getting their AA, AAA ratings, focusing on catering to that market. So I think that's really a really good thing.
Yeah.
Another question coming in from the chat. How do you expect to see Alexa grow for those with other impairments? So any plans to expand Alexa to include those with hearing impairments?
That's a really good question. And someone was asking us about what about hearing impairments. So of course, if you have any difficulties with speaking or like speaking disabilities, you're going to struggle using Alexa, using voice. But Alexa from a couple of years now has access to screen. Potentially that could be the way to go. Pretty much most Alexa skills, they display something on the screen, and in some cases when they have the visual interface, you can navigate through buttons. But I guess if you can see, I would say mobile devices would be more more powerful when it comes to what can you do with that. Alexa would have some limitations, I guess, and it's purely voice driven.
Yeah, and just a question from producer John. What other technology do you see is assisting blind people? I know that JAWS is popular on computers for reading content, but are there any other technology choices out there that helps with vision impaired people?
Oh, definitely. There are a lot of companies who are producing devices, like this one in Australia, producing smartphones when you can control them with your voice. So it's not like Alexa, but it's like a smartphone that plays you books and you can give it simple commands. JAWS is actually a screen reader, which you can use it on any pretty much operating system. But I guess my first surprise a couple of years ago was to realize blind people are actually very fond of iPhones because iPhone has accessibility mode, which basically tells you what's under your finger, what's on the screen, and it's pretty easy to use iPhone even when you're blind. I was blindfolding myself to test it out when I was designing some games for people who are blind, and it works really well. So if you are comfortable with using a smartphone, iPhone can pretty much do pretty much everything, just like Android phone as well.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of interesting projects out there. I saw that the deep composers were being set up to recognize sign language, the actions that people make with their fingers. So that's some really interesting ideas out there. So there's a lot of really new technology that's definitely helping these communities. So thanks so much for joining us today and being in the Q&A. It's been some really interesting use cases into how Alexa can help that community. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you as well. My pleasure. It was great seeing you guys.
Great. And we'll be back in a moment.
Thank you. Bye.
Welcome back. Now, since 2014. From helping customers build on-premise data center infrastructure in the old days, Ryan is now helping customers digitally transform in the cloud. Ryan loves working at home with his two dogs, Chubbly and Rocket, and recently celebrated his 1-year wedding anniversary. Congratulations, Ryan. I can't wait to see your talk.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Brooks-Kane and thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to show you how you can get going with Amazon Connect in as little as 10 minutes. As we all know, this year has resulted in how we work changing dramatically. I was working at home for months and now have adopted a more hybrid working environment. The ability to be able to do your job from anywhere can make a huge difference to your staff and customers. One place I've been helping organizations recently is with their contact center. A lot of companies are still reliant on their on-premise phone system to provide voice services, and as a lot of people are finding out, these PABX systems are either terrible to use remotely or just can't cope with the level of demand staff or customers are putting on it. Welcome to the stage, Amazon Connect. Connect is an omni-channel, cloud-based contact center, meaning it can do both voice and chat. It lets us get up running super fast and can scale with you as well as being easy to use with a graphical interface that I'll be showing you later. Connect can integrate with other AWS services such as Lambda, which basically allows you to do anything you want. Connect supports both inbound and outbound calling, natural language chatbots with Lex for both voice and chat, as well as machine learning powered speech analytics with Contact Lens, which I will go into later. Like all great services, Connect is also pay as you go. You pay for the base system usage, then the calls on top. Now, one thing I want to call out is Amazon Connect is a contact center solution. It's not a one-to-one replacement for a phone system. So for example, you can't connect a SIP phone to it. So make sure you review requirements with what Connect can do. The great thing is we can test and experiment really quickly. Let's go to the AWS console and see what it takes to set up Connect. All right, so now we're in the AWS console. I've gone to the Amazon Connect service. Because I don't have any Connect services set up in this account at the moment, you're going to get the getting started page. So we're going to hit get started. Now the first thing we need to do is set up identity management. So you can use the built-in Amazon Connect database, or we can use an existing directory such as Active Directory, or we can use SAML-based authentication with any IDPs that you have. So first I'm going to give a name for this instance. And then we're going to hit next. Now we can set up a admin inside the instance, but for the sake of this demo, I am just going to skip this one. Now Connect can be used for both inbound and outbound calls. That may seem a little bit silly, but for certain instances, you may not want to have inbound or you may not want to have outbound calls. So this is where you can specify that. Everything in Connect, we have it's stored. So we have like things like call recordings or logs and that sort of thing. So Amazon Connect uses S3, KMS for the data encryption, and obviously we have CloudWatch logs. Now we can expand this out, and you'll see here, this is where the different types of data will get stored inside your bucket. And we also have our flow logs, which get put into the CloudWatch logs. So we're just going to accept the defaults and hit next. This gives us a bit of an overview of what we're going to create. And since we're all happy with this, we're going to hit create. Now our first instance has been created. So what I'm going to do just quickly is open up our access URL in a different tab. So that will look like this, and this is how we're going to log into our Connect instance. But firstly, we need to set everything up. So what we're going to do is hit getting started. Now, this takes us to the control panel for Connect. And this is where we're going to configure everything. Now, because we know what we're doing, we're going to hit skip for now and not follow the wizard. So the first thing that we need to do is claim a phone number, because this is how we're going to get people to connect and call us. So what we're going to do is come down to our routing and click phone numbers. We're going to go over to the side and click claim number. And inside here, we're going to grab a toll-free number. Now we have two different types of numbers. There's toll-free and DID, like we talked about before in the pricing. Toll-free, obviously, the caller doesn't pay for anything. So we're going to take our first number here. We're not going to assign it to anything yet. We're going to click save. Next we're going to do is we need to set our hours of operation for this call center. So what we're going to do is come down to hours of operation, and we're going to set up a new hours of operation. So we're going to be doing this for our IT support desk. So we're going to say IT support. We are going to set that to Brisbane. And for the sake of this demo, our help desk likes to stay open nice and late. So we're going to set this to 10 p.m. But as you can see here, we can kind of have multiple schedules and selecting what we need. Perfect, so that's our hours of operation. So the next thing we need to do is create a queue. So a queue is where people sit on hold and wait for our agents to pick up. So we're going to add a new queue. This is going to be our IT support queue. And then we're going to give it our hours of operation. we're going to enter a outbound caller ID. We're also going to use our toll-free number as our outbound. So what we're going to do is set a limit. I'm going to set this one to 9. It's a good idea to set limits for your queues, just because there's maximum connection limits to connect, or you only have so many people you want to sit in a queue, and this will trigger error states along your queue, so you're able to then handle what happens if you're at your limit. So what we're going to do is go add new queue, and that's created our IT support queue. So next we're going to create flows. Now this is really the meat and potatoes of Amazon Connect. Flows are basically a workflow that defines the customer experience in your contact center. As you can see here, we've got quite a few default and sample flows, which are great for getting started and learning how things go together. And if you look over here to the right, we can create quite a few different flows. So I'll just go through them quickly. A contact flow, which is this sort of first major one. They're sort of the generic flow type that defines an inbound contact flow. We have our customer queue flows. This defines what the customer experiences while in the queue before an agent takes their call. We have our customer hold flows. These define what the customer experiences while on hold. We have our customer whisper flows, which defines what the customer experiences just before they are joined to an agent. We have our outbound whisper flows. This defines what the customer experiences on an outbound call before being connected to the agent. We have a agent hold flow. This defines what the agent experiences when on hold with a customer. We have our agent whisper flows. This defines what the agent experiences as part of an inbound call just before they are joined with the customer. And then we have our transfer to agent flows, which defines what the agent experiences when transferring to another agent, and transfer to queue flows, which defines what an agent experiences when transferring to another queue. So what we're going to do is create our contact flow. All right, so first things first, we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call this the support queue. And as you can see here, this is workflow interface. So what we're able to do is it's really actually quite awesome. It's drag and drop, and we can wire together how this call flow is going to go. Now what we're going to do is do a few settings first. Everything sort of starts at this entry point and then sort of follows the connecting lines as such to the end. Now, all the settings that I'm going to kind of show here aren't necessarily required, and as you sort of see, we'll be defining some of the default settings anyway, but what I'm going to do is configure a few of them just to show you what they do. So first things first, we're going to define the queue. So what we're going to do is go set, and we're going to set our working queue. So as you can see, we just drag in the object. We can click on it then, and that comes up with our settings box to the right. As you can see here, we can then grab the queue. When you're doing some more advanced stuff, you can start using things like attributes, and this is where you can start bringing in things like Lambda or Lex or other captured attributes that you're using. But for now, we're going to define our queue to the IT support queue. And then because we need to link it up, we're going to draw our arrow from start to our queue. Awesome. So what we're going to do next is we're going to enable logging. So we're going to touch our set logging behavior. So this is just making sure that we're enable logging and dumping that out to CloudWatch Lodge, so we can use that for analysis and monitoring and that sort of thing. So we'll take it from the success and dump it out to enable. I'll cover what error sort of does later. So for this queue, we're going to have call recording. So we're going to grab our call recording box. We're going to turn on call recording. We're going to say that it's for the agent and customer. What I'm going to also do here is enable contact lens. This is providing sort of speech analytics around the recordings. I'm going to set this to Australia. And there's also an option here where it will try to redact personal information. I'll go over contact lens a little bit later in the presentation. So we'll draw that one up. So that's our call recording. Then what we're going to do is specify our hold flow. And on this one, we're going to use our default agent hold. Now, as you can see there, it's sort of talking about the default agent. So what I will do is just quickly pull up contact flow, and I'll show you what that default agent hold looks like. So it's just another type of flow, and as we can see here, it basically is just looping saying, you're on hold. Great. So what we're going to do next is we're going to set the customer queue flow. So this one here just specifies what flow to run when a customer is transferred to the queue. Just going to put that one in there and draw it together. Next one we're going to do is set a default whisper. So whispers, once again, are sort of recordings or text or that sort of thing that are played to the agent or customer just before they get connected. So we're going to have our default agent whisper. The next, the all-important thing is telling Polly which voice to use. So I'm going to use an Australian language. As you can see here, wide support for all the different languages. And we're going to use Nicole. So first things first is we're going to start making some decisions. And to do that, we're going to use the branch menu. So in the branch menu, what we're first going to do is check our hours of operation. So what that does is make sure that are we in hours or out of hours, and then decide what to do from there. So after that, we're going to check our staffing. And here, this is what we do, is looking if we have people available in the queue. So we're going to take our in hours and then go to staffed. Now what we can do is, that's obviously we've tested that, hey, we're all staffed and ready to go. So what we can do is we can then transfer a call to the queue. Now we need to sort of handle some of our eventualities when, let's say, we're out of hours or we don't have any staff. So what we're going to do first is we're going to use our Polly text-to-speech. So we're going to play a prompt. So this first prompt is going to be that the contact center is currently closed. So let's just type a message for that. Awesome. And then what we're going to do is, from our out of hours, we're going to go to that message to say we're closed. And then, because we are keeping this simple, we're just going to hang up. Now, if we have some problems where, say, the system has an error or at capacity and that sort of thing, what a lot of contact centers will just do is this simple one. And what we're going to do is, when we send out that message, we're just going to hang up. But what we need to do is hook up together these errors and our at capacity. So what I'll do is I'll quickly do that, and it's simple as just drawing these together. Now obviously this probably wouldn't be the way you would do it in a real contact center, but for the sake of the demo this is going to work for us. So up the top here, this is sort of where we get some version control going on. So we can save, and nothing goes live to the system until we hit publish. Ooh. So now what we can see here is it's checked and gone that we have some problems, so that all outputs must be connected. So what I'm going to do here is just take the at capacity and the error and send it to our hangup. I'll save that again. We can see here we start to get some versions, and we're going to publish again. Alright, so as you can see, this can sort of start to get a little bit messy, but I'm keeping this on a small screen so you can see it all. Now that we've got that, let's start hooking it all together. So if we grab our phone number, take our phone number, and we're going to send it to our support queue. So that support queue flow. Now next what we need to do is a routing profile. So a routing profile is basically a way to handle what agents will get attached to what queues, and you can obviously specify voice and chat as well. So we're just going to call this one support. We're going to grab our support queue, voice only for this one, and our outbound will be IT support. So if they're calling out from the queue, it's just going to terminate them and put them into that IT support queue. So we'll add that profile. Now what we're going to do is quickly create our agent. Got a new user. I'm going to call my mate Steve. I'm going to select that routing profile we collected earlier. There's multiple security sort of profiles, so this just depends what they get access to inside the console, but Steve is just an agent. We can specify if they're using a soft phone or desk phone. For the desk phone, it just reroutes to a phone number that you have. You can do auto accept if you want to be a little bit cruel to your agents, and also if you have your after call workout time as well. So after call work is basically the amount of downtime an agent gets after the call, and we'll just leave this one for 0. So we'll create our user. Now, what we've actually done there is created everything. So next, I'll show you how a call comes through. Let's log in as Steve and take our call. So we're going to sign in. Now we can use any of the microphones and stuff attached to our computer. Now we also have the option of forwarding the calls to a phone number as well. But for this demo, we're going to use a soft phone. We can use the dial number to dial out, as well as any quick contacts that we've set up for the queue. So let's set ourselves available to take the first call.
IT support.
Hello, my name is Ryan. Welcome to IT support. How can I help you?
Hi, my password isn't working. I was wondering if you can help me.
Sure. Let me reset your password. Okay, I've reset it. Can you try now?
Yep, everything's working now.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's all, thanks.
Perfect. Have a great day. And that there is how you take a call with Amazon Connect. Contact Lens for Amazon Connect provides machine learning based analytics for your calls. This allows you to extract valuable information from your customers' conversations and provide insights where you might not have before. Contact Lens gives you automatic transcription of your calls while being able to redact personally identifiable information, and it also determines sentiment trends for the conversation. You can also define rules that allow you to detect issues and categorize calls. It's simple to set up, as you saw in the demo, and it's pay as you use as well. Full data from the analysis, as you can see here on the right, is available too, allowing you to extract this and use it where you need with your data intelligence tools. Let's have a look and see what this looks like in the console. Amazon Connect also has some really powerful search functionality, especially when we have our call recording and contact lens enabled. So here you can see we can search for our contacts and go through that. And we can also start looking for things like words and phrases, our sentiment score, non-talk time, and any other additional fields we would like to use. Let's have a look at the call we just had before. So as we can see here, this is our contact trace report. Now the agent that took it was Steve, and it came in on the IT support phone number. You can see here, and this is pretty typical of a lot of sentiment trends on IT support. You start out negative, where people are saying, hey, I'm having a problem, and you end out positive once you've resolved it. We can see here, overall, our sentiment was positive, and we didn't really have any non-talk time, which is great. Categories are when we create our rules to match against certain text, and it will show up here. And then we can see our full transcript. So you can play this end to end, and that will go through the full transcript as we're going. So you can see here at the start, we had a positive sentiment. Something wasn't working, so a negative sentiment. And then we move on throughout the call. And we can see we have the full transcript. And if we want some more information, we can see what we have here. From the connection, what queue it was in, how long did it last, and the total agent time, including our total interaction and how long the agent spent after the call. Unfortunately, that's all I've got time for today. I hope I was able to help you learn something about Amazon Connect, and that maybe it might be a great fit for you. Have a great day.
And welcome back. We're joined now by Ryan from that video. Thanks, Ryan, so much for joining us today. That was a really great deep dive into the whole process of setting up Connect from scratch with all the bells and whistles, and a really well thought out contact flow I saw there. So that's really, really cool. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I had a question. Is for these numbers that you see that are pre-populated from the list, I noticed that you can search for some and pre-select them, but can you port your own numbers in? Oh, we've lost Ryan. That's unfortunate. I hope he comes back. But yeah, that was a fantastic talk. What did you think about that one, Keisha?
I absolutely love Connect, and I think Ryan did a great job of showing us how to create an on-demand contact center. You know, my very first experience with Connect was when I used Alexa to make phone calls. Looks like he's back.
All right. Everyone just froze as soon as you introduced me.
Glad
No
to
worries.
have you back.
That's that Australian internet for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I was saying, can you port your own numbers into Connect in addition to just searching the ones that were there?
Yeah, you can. It's a little bit of a process, like all number porting, if anyone's ever kind of done that before, but the AWS support team is there to help you and facilitate that process coming in.
That's really awesome.
Do you have any tips or tricks for keeping cost under control?
Yeah, cost can be like a really interesting one, and it can kind of come down to how you configure it or even how you use the service as well. So some really good examples of how to not look after cost, is having people wait on hold for a really long time, because like all things cloud, it's pay as you use as such. People sitting there listening to hold music is still using the service. So offering things like callback instead. So, hey, let us know your number. You won't lose your place in the queue. We'll call you back. That can be a really good way to minimize that total sort of call time that people have throughout the system, as well as things like the integration with like chatbots and that sort of thing. You can hopefully try and shorten the length of call by getting those common answers out as quickly as possible. That can even go on to a back-end cost sort of thing. So having lots of agents is obviously also expensive as well, with salaries and that sort of thing. So if you can have less people but service more people, it's obviously more cost effective. There's lots of techniques and not just technology, but also with how you do it, you can reduce cost.
Yeah, that's really smart. We've got a few questions coming in from the chat. First one from Nick. Can we get a consolidated report for the agent, i.e. the overall sentiment for the day, or how the agent has performed compared to the other agents throughout the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's an out-of-the-box report, something like that. But the benefit is because all of this sentiment analysis and everything basically can just get written off to an S3 bucket. All that data is available for us. So if you're dumping it into your data lake and then doing your usual with analysis and then reporting on top, it wouldn't be extremely difficult to be able to pull that data, create, say, dashboards for all your agents. Even, there's gamification and stuff that a lot of places like to play with too, to go through that. So the data's there. I don't think off the top of my head there's an inbox report for it, but
yeah, great. So we can sort of write our own scripts to help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Another question I see in the chat, can one agent call another agent?
Yeah, great question. There are ways to do there's a couple of ways. One, you can do quick connects, which allows you to sort of go between agents in the queues. They can sort of be specified, or you can dump them out to other queues as well. I guess the one thing to call out though, it is, and I sort of say at the start of the presentation, Connect isn't your traditional phone system. So it's not really there to be the office phone system. I need to call a couple people like around the office. It really is that contact center of in and outbound calls that we need to do to service our customers. So there's ways to transfer stuff around and that sort of thing, and that's generally how you can handle it.
Cool tips. A question from Abascali in chat. How can you connect your customer VPCs with Connect? Is there ways to do that from Lambda or from some of the other services?
That's a great question. I would ask if they can give some sort of examples of why they would want to do that. That'd be great, and I can talk to that. But so you can integrate it with your Lambda functions and use that obviously as a mechanism to be able to pull and push data kind of as you will. And obviously Lambda can also function within VPCs too. So that gives us quite a lot of flexibility. With the authentication side, it can use obviously SAML and the directory connectors and that sort of thing. So that's also integrating and working with some things you might have in your VPC. But the biggest way I can kind of think off the top of my head of integrations and stuff is really going to be that Lambda path is from a inflow sort of perspective. And if we're talking out of band for reporting, maybe even monitoring and that sort of thing, there's a lot of stuff there around, obviously things get dumped out to CloudWatch logs. We can dump things out to S3. So for more sort of real time and that sort of stuff, we got quite a few options there as well.
It's great. I think it shows a lot of flexibility that that's available to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see another question in the chat from Nick. How do you see the Connect market in Australia and any specific area that startups should focus on?
Well, that's a great question. So Connect's getting used in quite a lot of organizations and some really big public ones as well. So the sort of, I guess, uptick that I've personally seen, there's quite a lot of use cases for Connect. And I think one really key thing is it doesn't have to be a whole hog approach either. So you don't have to just go, I need to replace my entire call system. Like, that's scary for most businesses, because those things are usually super well ingrained. It's a part of, there's usually a lot of, you have to train to use the systems, and that call flow and business process has been built around that for a very long time. So what's great about Connect is it can also be used in, like, sort of, I guess, surgical sort of uses as well. So let's say you have a new branch or a new feature or new something that you want to do within your call flow. There's nothing stopping you taking your current system and sending that part to Connect and then handling it with that way. And you can sort of phase bits over or provide new functionality like getting data or integrating with chatbots and that sort of thing. Well, put Connect in front of your current system to try and minimize things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of flexibility there in terms of how you can do the deployments, and that can sometimes make it a little bit less scary. In terms of startups and what I think they could probably harness with Connect, for me, or what I would like to see more in the ecosystem and what people are building and that sort of thing is just really focusing on with Connect. It's quite powerful with its integrations. So out of the box integrations, out of the box support. If you could build a platform where you can be that sort of shim in the middle, and make it really easy for, because Connect, a lot of Connect, if you want to look at it, is drag and drop, let me use the workflow, and you could ignore Lambda and coding and all of that sort of stuff if you wanted to. So if someone could make that integration the same sort of style of getting two things to talk to each other, and maybe we just use a helper Lambda in the middle or something like that, that'd be really cool. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for an ecosystem to kind of be built around it. And they're starting that now with, I know there's some new programs in terms of, from a partner's perspective of AWS for Connect integrations and partners and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's tons of room there in terms of extending the functionality and feature set that Connect has to be able to do more things.
Yeah, it's so great. I think one more question that I had was, as a partner, you're rolling out all of these distributions. Do you think that COVID epidemic has increased the demand for Connect? Are you seeing more remote working? Are you seeing more usage of Connect throughout your customers?
Yeah, that's sort of a great question, and really sort of what started off my kind of why I started this off as a blog post, but then I've been presenting it a couple of times as well. Was really I had a customer come to me right at sort of that start of where everyone's going, we're gonna have to go home, and we're gonna have to work from home. And a lot of companies were extremely quickly realizing that their systems just can't support that remote working sort of experience. And then you multiply that by, I now have a room of 40 call center agents who are used to coming in, sitting at a terminal, doing their work and going home, to now you all need to go home. Here's a USB headset and click this URL. It's a really, really big shift that some companies were starting to quite struggle with. And what Connect allowed us to do was, with these on-premises platforms that a lot of people had, either their internet couldn't handle it, the phone system couldn't handle doing enough digital lines versus still having physical lines. And Connect really allowed us to just go, let's get something up super quick. And like I'm talking, we were building systems in a day and having agents on it in that afternoon to provide thousands of calls a day to end customers and stuff. Especially at the start of COVID, everyone was people were scared. People didn't know what was going on. They didn't know, hey, how is my child going to school? Can I work from home? How are things going to work? Am I going to have toilet paper? There was, and so being able to then go, don't worry, you can work from home, you can take the calls, we can sort of keep this continuity going, and to do it in an extremely like cost effective way, but also being able to quickly do that and quickly make changes too. So we were building systems and then go, yep, that works, but now we need this, and it would just expand and expand and expand and expand day after day, because they were realizing, well, now we can just do this and this is easy. So let's keep going. So yeah, it was quite a big like adoption and take up because of that. And I think even the companies that didn't, and now we're kind of like, luckily in Australia, we're not at the end, but we're getting back to some sort of form of normalcy. Then now we're having companies sort of talk to us and go, hey, we didn't do so well during that period. Now we need a solution to kind of keep moving forward.
That's fantastic insight. I think that's going to wrap us up for the day. So thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for joining our Q&A. It was really insightful to hear about how Connect's affecting our communities and how quickly we can roll these things out. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
And I think that's great for us to wrap up the day. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Keisha, do you have any final thoughts for the day? What you've seen so far? Any parting thoughts around that?
Yeah, so for me, today was just very inspiring. We saw the possibilities of what Alexa and Connect can do, from IO connectivity, IoT connectivity, flash briefing skills, using Connect to monitor call quality, how Alexa can aid the blind, and then Ryan showed us how to quickly create an on-demand contact center. So I just walk away feeling very inspired and wanting to play more with Alexa and Connect, if that was possible.
That's so great. It's amazing to see how many diverse use cases that I never thought were going to be possible that we're seeing with both Alexa and Connect. It's really great to see. So I think we'll now go to a bit of a preview of tomorrow for tomorrow's IoT Day. Tomorrow we have a few speakers up and running, so we'll go through them quickly. First up, we have Brian Foddy and Cameron, and they're talking about CI/CD that spans the 7 Cs. That should be very interesting. We have Nathan Glover, our very own hero, that's talking about top tips for scaling your IoT projects. Look out for that. We have Charmaine Lee talking about the Internet of Dog. I have no idea what that is, and I'm looking forward to that.
Very interesting.
And a similar talk after that, Andrew Van Dam talking about IoT for lazy pet owners. So I sense a theme coming along here. We have Luca Bianchi talking about serverless IoT with Greengrass, Ansible, and CDK. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. And then we're going to wrap up there with Laura Hyatt talking about sentiment analysis as a sweep machine and other amazing things there. So really looking forward to the IoT Day tomorrow, hosted by Nathan and Derek. So that should be really
like
fun.
Another awesome day. Yeah.
It's another awesome day every day. A reminder to our chat that the survey links are in the chat, so please fill them out. Let us know how we did. Let us know what you thought of our speakers. And that's it from us. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.